Welcome everybody. It's John Adorney here, and there's been a little bit of uh, retrospective recently about my first album, Beckoning, which was released back in 1998, and so I thought I'd talk about it a little bit, and also answer some questions that were submitted through my website about Beckoning, and so hopefully you'll get a little bit of insight into that album, which still remains to be my most popular album. The album has a lot of sentimental value to some people, and it was a real adventure for me to make it. It was, for me, releasing my first album, it was like, having a baby or something, just pacing the room. It's like, oh my gosh, this is it. We're going to be printing this thing on a CD and it's not going to be able to be changed forever. And so there were a lot of great things that happened with it. Uh, One of the main things that was really enjoyable was that I was able to have it mixed by Paul Dieter, and he had just been nominated for a Grammy for mixing Jackson Browne's album called 1985. And so it's like all of a sudden here I am, John Adorney. I've never made an album before. Nobody knows who I am. And I have this Grammy nominated engineer that's, a master, and he's going to be mixing my album. And it was a lot of fun. Paul's a great guy, and we had a lot of fun. And so I was very excited about it. And so I'm just going to play you a little bit of each track just to remind you and me, what they were. And the opening track was called "The Gift," and it goes a little something like this. So one of the things that I was thinking about when I wrote that piece was that I had been listening to a lot of Indian music, music from India. And one of the things that's very different about music from India is that it's not based on all these chord changes that we're used to in Western music. And so it's more based on like a drone or, kind of staying kind of within the same key, not changing keys and doing this and that. But one of the things that's in a lot of the songs is a kind of a call and response. So in this piece, you hear that call and response. In fact, I had one person write to me that said, "I don't have any questions about Beckoning, but I just want to let you know that those first four notes of Beckoning are some of my favorite, parts. This here." Those are his favorite four notes, and so that's the call, and then there's the response. So it's almost like voices singing like somebody's singing a question or a statement, and then a group or a person is a voices answering back. So that was a really interesting piece for me to write, and I thought it was a really wonderful way to start off the album. Uh, the second the second track is the title track of the album, Beckoning. And that was a piece that actually I was teaching music at the time and doing music therapy. And one of my students was a very talented young musician. And I arrived at his home to do the lesson, and he was finishing something. So I was just there with the keyboard downstairs, and I just wrote that piece right on the spot. That little melody came out, and so that's where Beckoning was. It just happened to be composed at the student's house on his little electronic keyboard. And one of the questions I did get asked was, how did you come up with the title Beckoning for the track and also for the album? And the answer is that my wife came up with that title. Uh, I can't remember if she said it was because the piece had kind of a beckoning quality or whatever, but she came up with that title. And it's interesting because that's the kind of title that I think, when I think now when I'm thinking of an album for a title, I think I would never have thought of calling an album Beckoning. But anyway, it was perfect, and really enjoyed, being able to use that title. And so the next track on the album is called The Gathering. And when Paul Dieter was mixing this track, he he said, every album that you mix has one track that's just a monster. And it's the one that sucks up like half the time it takes to mix the whole album is on this one track. This was the monster, and it really it's kind of an epic piece. It kind of starts like far away and these drums and everything, and then there's a big celebratory chorus. And the feeling that I wanted to get in that chorus was a feeling that I had when I was on a little island off the coast of Venezuela when I was, I think, 15. And it happened to be a holiday for the people that were native to the island. And they had a parade. It was a really funky little island. Didn't have a lot of people on it. And the parade was kind of funky, but it had a lot of men with like dressed up as soldiers with little toy guns and little helmets. Probably was their Independence Day. Um, but there was this great music happening, and the thing that's really struck me was a huge open bed truck, like I don't know, like a big truck with walls around the bed, was just packed with people. I think mostly men, and they were banging. It was all this music happening. They were leaning over, banging on the sides of the truck, hitting things, playing shakers, and it was just this incredibly beautiful celebration of music, just this burst of life. And I wanted the piece to kind of have that feeling in the chorus, and so that's why it kind of builds to this chorus. And there's a little bit of, this is actually the first track that had Daya singing on it. You can hear her doing the ohs, and then at the end she does some ooh la las, and that was a real treat to have Daya be able to sing on my track, on one of my tracks, or any of my tracks. And but if you listen to the piece, sometimes especially if you take the vocals out, you can hear all these different parts. It kind of, for me, it was like that, the men banging on the truck. There's all kinds of wild little things happening all at once, kind of in the background. So it's kind of fun to listen to very carefully. The next piece is called Solace, and I did get a question about it because somebody felt that it was had a very sad feeling to it. And I do get the comment often that there's kind of a sadness or a longing in my music, but usually even within every piece, there's some longing and then the feeling of that longing being fulfilled. So the question was I sad when I wrote this piece, Solace? And my answer is no, I wasn't sad at all. It was a very comforting, piece, very just had a very sweet feeling to it. And I just felt this kind of beautiful, soft, like comforting feeling. Here's a little bit of Solace. Almost like a lullaby. And that also, now that I hear it, that's the first track that I've ever recorded cello on. So that was kind of interesting. The next track is a track called Never Ending. And it's also got more, got a section, the middle section where Daya is singing. And this is what has been a pretty popular piece. And Daya sings in the bridge, this part here. So that was the first piece that I played electric guitar on. When we did it live in concert in 2010, it was fantastic. And Fusby Morris played some just amazing guitar lead on it. So anyway, that's Never Ending. And the next piece is called All Is Well. And this is a track that one of those pieces that was really easy to compose. It just naturally came out. There was like almost nothing to it. And it was always one of my favorite pieces. It's my favorite piece to play because it's actually quite easy to play. And if anybody's interested, I actually have a PDF, an electronic version of piano scores of several of my pieces, and then the sheet music to this one is in there. You can see that on my website. The title for this piece is from, I was working on the music at my apartment at the time, and one of my wife's friends came over to visit her, and she walked in the door and said, "Oh, that music just makes me feel like all is well." And I said, "Well, you just titled the piece. That's a perfect title for it." So that's All Is Well. I'll play a little bit of it here. And that's always been a piece that I just had a special feeling for. And also, one of my close friends passed away several years ago, and he had been listening to my music a lot right towards the end, and his request was that I play this at his memorial, so I played this piece at his memorial. So I have very fond memories of All Is Well. Moving on to the next track is called Moving On, and it goes like this. And this piece actually was originally mixed by my friend Nigel Holton, who was one of the early Eversound artists who passed away many years ago, or several years ago. And he mixed it at his studio. And the thing that was interesting about that was because it was originally on a collection before any of the Eversound artists did solo releases. We did a collection called Reflections, and this track was on there. And so he mixed it for that. And one of the things that I learned from having the two pieces that I did for that album mixed by Nigel was that I think I could do that. So that's when I started like focusing more on learning how to mix myself, because I realized that, there's not a whole lot to it. And then, so then working with someone like Paul Dieter, who was super experienced and really good, I would just sit there and just pick his brain. If he moved a knob, I'd say, "What did you just do? I'd really like to know." And so I just really started, learning a lot from Paul. And then uh, after my second album, actually starting with my second album, working with Leslie Chu, I learned a lot from Leslie, and basically did a lot of studying and learned how to mix pretty well myself. So, of course, now since I'm starting to lose some of my hearing in the high end, my son Nathan helps me mix my albums because he's got a really good ear and is a really great engineer. So that's moving on. And the next track is called Aphelion. I've always called it Aphelion, but really, the young woman, Premlata Rawat, that wrote the song, wrote the melody, and wrote the melody. And I said, "Oh, I'd like to put that track on my album." She said, "Oh yeah, you can just use it." She said, "Actually, it's pronounced Aphelion." Um, I think it's an astronomical term, and it's like I think the point where a moon is like the farthest from the planet. That's the aphelion. Don't quote me on that, but something like that. So and it's it's got a really great melody, and then I changed it and enhanced it. So anyway, I've gotten a lot of nice comments about that piece, and uh, it's got these sticks that are like clicking, and like if you listen to it with headphones, the sticks are like swirling all around. It's got a very swirling kind of a feeling. Uh, the second to last track on the album is called Celebration, and it's a very simple piece. I just felt like it had that kind of a feeling. So, and it's funny because hearing it now, the guitar that I'm using to play that lead part, I'm like three guitars removed from that part. In fact, a lot of the guitars that I used on that album, I don't have them anymore. I don't use them anymore. Some of them were borrowed because I didn't have the best instruments at the time. And also, I recorded all the tracks for this album on this keyboard. It's a Korg O1W. They don't make these anymore. And it's got a little window here where you can record the notes for 16 different tracks. And I recorded all these pieces and quite a bit more on this keyboard. For several of the albums, the music was recorded on that keyboard. And it worked pretty well. The only problem is that when your window that you're looking at is down like this, you develop a neck problem. So I was really happy when it moved to a computer where you could look straight at what you were working on. You just play the notes down here, but you're looking at the computer. Uh, so that was Celebration, and then the track, the album ends with A Dance of the Moon and Stars, which is one of my, definitely my most listened to track. It's my most popular track. Um, and it's just one of those pieces that just came out so flawlessly and easily that, um, you just can't produce it that at will. It just happens or it doesn't happen. And Richard Hardy is playing some wonderful bamboo flute on there. And that's got also that same kind of thing happening where the piano plays the phrase and then the flute echoes it. So it's that kind of call and response. And also, this is the track that started it all, where the cover art of my albums almost usually don't reflect the title track; they reflect one of the other tracks. So the cover art that I came up with um, uh, was basically the moon and the stars, and then on the back of the album it's reversed. It's anyway, just having fun with the artwork. Rob Love helped me with the artwork and did a lot of the pictures. And also the stars in the on the cover are not actually stars. It's light glistening on water in a swimming pool. And I just thought like, wow, that looks like stars. So we used that for the sky. And so anyway, that's Beckoning. It was a wonderful experience doing it, and just a joy to do. And when I listen to it now, it's like, yes, I can see how my music has changed a little bit over the years in some ways, but hopefully it all kind of fits together. And I can see that a lot of my arrangements are more complex now. I use a lot more live instruments than I did on Beckoning. And but it was, like I said, a really fun album to work on. And I've had so many people tell me that it's their, favorite, and they listen to it all the time. And their kids listen to it on the way to school every day because the parent was playing it all the time. That's all they would listen to. And so anyway, so that was a little bit about Beckoning, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And take care, and thanks for listening.